Hey guys, Sharif with Fast Car Seats here. Welcome back to the channel. I know it's been a minute since we made a video. Lots happened since the last upload. I figured we could maybe take a little drive and have a little chat. So for those of you who follow the Instagram, you know that I sold the BMW. And that was really difficult for me to do for a few reasons, but it also made a lot of sense for me for a lot of reasons, which is ultimately why I did it. So let me give some backstory about me and why I even bought the BMW in the first place. So I have 3 kids, right? Fast Car Seats. I have 3 kids, and I wanted, to make sure that I shared my hobbies with my kids, right? So, I'm into sports. I like camping, doing outdoorsy stuff, fixing things, working on cars, right? These are all things that I share with my kids, who are all really, they're quite young. I got 3 boys, and they're all quite young. How the cars thing kind of came about. Cars have always been something that I'm interested in. I've loved working on and driving. But it's funny because I'd say that hobby kind of went dormant for me for a while. When I was growing up, and certainly in high school, I was, a garage rat. I mean, I was working on cars all the time. I'd be working on my cars, my friends' cars. I'd be driving, high performance schools, all that stuff. And then I went to college, and I didn't really keep up with the hobby. I think I was into different things. I was kind of figuring out, like you do in college, just like who you are, what you're interested in. I had been an athlete all my life, and then I didn't play in college, so I think I was, kind of figuring out like who am I? Up until then, I'd been playing soccer all the time, like practices 3-4 nights a week, games every weekend, year round. I mean, it was just so much a part of what I was, and so I think I was figuring out, what am I without being an athlete? What am I without being around cars? Because I didn't even have a car in college. I didn't have a car on campus with me. Then after that, I went to grad school. Same type of thing, right? I was just so busy that keeping up with cars really wasn't in my portfolio. And I think the friends that I was hanging out with at the time were also they weren't all that into cars. So it was a hobby that kind of had fallen off for me, which is, I will say, it's a big regret, because where I went to graduate school is near kind of one of the best driving roads in the U.S., Tail of the Dragon in East Tennessee. Definitely should have taken advantage of that, but that's all right. Maybe someday I'll get a chance to get out there and experience that road. But so, life kind of just happened. And this was a period where I'll say I was kind of so busy on kind of building my professional future that I didn't really keep up with any of my hobbies. I wasn't really playing soccer. I had, that's not true. I was playing soccer, and I had a couple knee surgeries. I tore my ACL, had a couple knee surgeries, 3 knee surgeries. And, I guess just the important part, I guess, is just that, like, I was more focused on building my professional career than I was enjoying my life and having hobbies and that type of thing. I did meet my wife in college, so I should, say that too, that I had a really healthy relationship. My now wife, I met as a sophomore in college, so we've been together ever since. So, that was, really great for me. And I bring that up because it was kind of funny. One day, she had heard me obviously talking about cars, and she knew that I had an interest in cars, but she had never really seen me having a cool car or working on cars or going to track weekends or anything like that. And fast forward to, she and I, we both grew up in the Midwest. Fast forward to now we live in Southern California. We were going to a kid's birthday party, a family friend's kid's birthday party. And I think we saw a classic, late 60s, 69 Ford Mustang Fastback. And she grew up in Michigan and kind of, in a GM family, but that's a classic. That 69 Mustang Fastback, I think, is a classic. And she had kind of commented, how cool would it be if we had, a classic car like that, like a project car. And it kind of hit me. I was like, it's so funny that you say that, because I used to really enjoy working on cars. I used to be, pretty handy and enjoyed, not so much working on classics like that. I'd never really done that, but just, doing things that you do when you're in high school. You get a car, you do all the bolt-ons, right? You put on a new exhaust, put on a new intake, switch out the wheels, customize it, make it your own, go to shows, go to track weekends. These were all things that I, had done. And we sort of thought, like, that would be a cool thing for all of us to do, right? That would be a cool thing. At the time, we had one kid. It would be a cool thing to kind of just have. It's a hobby that you can do at home, regardless of the weather, right? Like, if the weather's not good enough to go play soccer, you can always, work on your car and enjoy that and drive your car. And, I think the other part is in Southern California, the weather's almost always amazing, and car culture is just different out here than it is where we grew up. Just a lot more people enjoying their cars. A lot more people have weekend cars that they take, they take care of and want to enjoy. And car shows are just, any given weekend, there's a million car shows that you can go and experience. So I think we sort of thought, like, let's do that. Let's get a car. And since it had been so many years since I had really gotten into it, I wanted to have a platform that I was going to be excited about and that I had some familiarity with, and that ultimately was the E36. So the E36 BMW, my first car was an E36 BMW. We bought it from a family friend. It was a 325i sedan, black exterior with that tan interior, manual transmission, and that was the car that I got when I was 16, and it was amazing. I loved that car. I was in high school in the mid-2000s, and this was what year was that car? I want to say it was a 95, I think it was a 95. So, it was about 10 years old when I got it, and or thereabouts, but it was a great car. And I think one of the things that's so funny that I've been thinking about lately is there's so many, I'd say, like, legendary cars from that era that we took for granted, or I took for granted at least. The Integra Type R, we all knew was a great car, but I don't think we knew it would reach legendary status. The Supra, just a bunch of cars, like the E36 and what it became, the E46. There's just so many great cars from that era that were readily accessible. And anyway, my point is, I had the E36. I loved that car. So I thought, what, let me find an E36, but this time, we don't live in the Midwest anymore. We don't have to deal with winter and snow. Let's get the California version of it, and that was the convertible. I'd never had a convertible before. Obviously, again, out here in Southern California, you see them, and it's just part of, I think, experiencing the weather. So got the convertible, and we ended up actually buying the car. I think it was during COVID lockdown, right? There wasn't a whole lot of other things happening, and it was a great escape for me. My wife works in healthcare, so she was working crazy hours, and I was home with two kids, trying to occupy them, trying to keep up with my job. My job didn't stop. I had, working from home. It was a really stressful time, but being able to get out, work on the BMW, drive the BMW, experience these beautiful roads that we have out here in Southern California, that was something special for me. And so I really appreciated what the E36 represented at that period of my life, and just getting me back into something that I love, and getting me back into, the passion of driving. Driving had become so transactional for me, right? And it's one of the great joys of life. And I think particularly at this period of time where cars are changing so much. It's becoming increasingly more difficult to customize your car your way because so many things are, electronic. I think just knowing how it was, for me, in the 90s and 2000s, but you talk about people who were into cars even earlier than that, when cars were even more customizable. Things are changing now, and so I'm really grateful that I was able to get the E36, was able to jump right back in. It was a platform that I was familiar with. I knew right away where to go, right? When I wanted a cool air intake, I went right to Dynan, right? That's just, I knew the brands, I knew where to get them. I'm sure some things had changed, but I was pretty confident in my ability to kind of learn, get back up. I knew I vibed with the community already because I'd been a part of the community, right? Just going back to when I was in high school, I totaled the E36 in an accident that was not my fault, but nonetheless the car was totaled, and after that I got an E39, 540. So I'd always been in BMW culture, and just knew, it was great for me to be able to get back in and just reignite that love of cars that I had. But then I learned a few things. I learned that I don't really like convertibles. I drove it with the top down a lot early on, but I live, kind of like in downtown LA. Being at lights, like as I was on my way to the PCH or Angeles Crest or whatever road I'd be driving, it felt weird. Just you'd be sitting at a red light and everyone can just, know what you're listening to or peek right into the car. Not that I'm doing anything crazy, but it was just weird. I felt very exposed. And the sound of the wind going through, I thought, that was great. But I had a wind deflector, and with that up, it was basically functionally the same. For me, the experience was very similar to having a sunroof and having that open. And I preferred that. I preferred kind of the more enclosed feel of a hardtop car. And I ultimately ended up buying a hardtop for the E36, and I drove it with that on almost all the time. So I essentially turned my convertible into a coupe. But when I thought, okay, I want to take this back out to the track, I don't really want to track a convertible. And obviously the hardtop is a removable hardtop, so doesn't have to provide the same level of security, really, is what I was thinking about. Obviously there's an argument for chassis rigidity as well, but for me it was sort of the security piece of, I really don't feel good driving in this hardtop, and I did want to get out to the track, and just the way that I am, I want to make sure that I'm doing things in a way that is going to allow me to enjoy it. And if I'm worried about my safety the whole time, it's not going to be able to enjoy the experience. So I knew that I'd kind of outgrown what the E36 was for me. And that's not to say that I outgrew the E36 platform, because you can really do a million things with the E36. But for the stage of kind of my coming back into enjoying cars, I think the E36 had kind of done that for me, right? It had reignited that passion. It had gotten me to go out and get all the tools that I would need to get back to working on cars, getting me back into the world, connecting with people in the community. It had done that, and again, I'm very grateful for what it was for me. But then I wanted to move on to something else, so I sold the E36 a few months ago, and the people that I bought it to were these guys, these friends that were in their probably early to mid 20s, so excited about an E36, and it felt good to sell it to someone that I knew what it would mean to them, right? I had a bunch of parts that I hadn't yet installed on it. I was going to repair the headliner and the roof, and I think one of the windows had stopped working, so I had bought the regulator. I had a bunch of freebies in there as well, and so I think for them, if they plan on wrenching on it, they had a pretty good starting point. But then for me, I knew I was ready to move on to something that was a little bit more, I think, track oriented. I knew that this was going to be something just like the E36. It was going to be my second car, weekend car, track car, something a little bit more focused on that. I also knew that it's been so long since I've done a track day. It's been at least 15 years. And so I wanted to get a class, right? Get back in, work with a coach, make sure that I was, getting good habits. And the other thing is out here in Southern California, the tracks are just more accessible. I can get to Buttonwillow, I can get to Chuckwalla, I can get to Sonoma, I can get to these tracks with relative ease, right? It's not the huge commitment that it was in the Midwest. And so I wanted something that was a little bit more turnkey, something that I didn't have to work on so much. I'm not out here trying to blaze a trail and do time attack right away. I'm trying to just get back into track days, right? Getting back into where, once a month I'm out pushing the limits of my car and really enjoying driving at that level. And so I wanted something that could be mine and could be ready to go. One of the things that I do remember, for anybody who's tracked a car, you'll probably recall this as well, is you can't enjoy a track day if you're spending no time on the track. If you have to work on your car, if you have to fix your coolant, if you got an oil leak, and you're working on that all weekend, you're pissed, right? You've paid $500 to go and enjoy the weekend, and at least $500, and you can't even go and do that. So I wanted something that was kind of ready to go on the track. I wanted a hard top. And it's so funny because now, right, it's 2024 as I'm recording this video. All the cars that were cool are cool, but they're so expensive now, right? I remember when I was in high school, one of the cars that I wanted was the S2000, and I almost got an S2000. And really, I think it just came down to, it was hard to have a two-seater in high school. For that to be your only car at that age when you want to drive your friends around, it just wasn't all that practical. But now, finding an unmodified S2000 in good shape is very difficult, right? Integra Type R, same thing. Almost got one. We knew that they were great cars in the mid-2000s, but I don't think we realized just how rare they would be and what cars would become, right? I don't think we knew sort of the direction that cars would go. Didn't get an Integra Type R. Again, now, good luck finding one that's affordable. So my point is just to say, there was sort of these cars that I felt like I missed my window to get them at an affordable price in the state that they were in. So I started to think about what are some cars now that are going to be that Honda S2000, Integra Type R. What are they? The E36 M3. What are the cars that maybe 10 years from now we're going to look back and go, man, we didn't know how good we had it when these cars were out. And to make a long story short, essentially I came down to comparing two cars, which are it's funny because they're really not that similar, but they get compared pretty frequently. It was buying a first-gen Porsche Cayman S, or a GR86. Again, and they're really not that comparable of cars, right? The Porsche Cayman, German, mid-engine Porsche, right? I mean, this is a serious car, known for being great. I could only afford it because I could get, it's old enough now that I could get a few years old. The pros to that are, again, all of the things that you get when you buy a Porsche. It's an amazing car. It's well built. That maintenance is going to be a thing. But again, for me, for what that car was going to be, as a track car, I mean, Porsches, they're ready to roll, right? You get a Porsche anything Type S, it's ready to roll on the track and in the canyon roads and, for those types of driving conditions. But, you'd be buying it used. And again, these were my considerations. Other people might differ. For my considerations, you'd be buying the car used. You don't know always what the maintenance record is. A lot of these cars that I was looking at were modified, which is not a bad thing. I just prefer to buy unmodified cars. Because if I want to modify it, I want to do that myself. Not because I think that I do superior work, but that's just part of what you're doing when you're modifying a car is you're making it your own. And so if you're buying someone else's modifications, the chances of their tastes being your tastes It could happen, but the chances are relatively low. So that was sort of one option, was the Cayman S. Another option was sticking with BMW and getting an M3. That, for me, was appealing because, if I wanted another E36, I could have done that. If I wanted an E46, same thing, could have done that. E90, even some of the newer ones where I thought maybe if I get a newer one, that could just be my daily driver, especially now that they make them in a sedan, and then I could put my kids in there. My daily driver and my weekend car. Ultimately, I decided that's not really the route that I want to go. I think I need something that, not that I plan on trashing the car, but something where if something catastrophic happens at the track, I'm not going to wonder about whether I fix the car or pay my kids' school tuition, right? I think I needed something that was pretty comfortably in my price range. And that's where the GR86 came in. And I watched probably every video, every car review, every video on the 86 on YouTube. And I was really starting to lean towards getting the GR86. It's funny, I never really considered the Subaru variant, the BRZ. I don't know why. I know it's the same car. I know it's, 99.9% the same car. I'm familiar that there's some suspension tuning differences and things like that, but I think there's very few visual differences, but the visual differences that there are, I prefer the look of the GR86 over the BRZ. But really, I think what solidified it for me was, as I was kind of reading up on it and doing my research, and again, I'll also include the caveat, you don't drive a spec sheet, you don't drive somebody else's video review. That is 100% true. I just felt that I needed to do some background to familiarize myself with a platform that I really didn't know. I've never really had a Japanese sports car. I do have the Lexus GX, and I've had a Lexus previously, but I've never really had a sports car, Japanese sports car. I wouldn't say that I'm sort of, really in tune with kind of JDM culture or things like that. So, I kind of want to familiarize myself with what it would be like. And then within that, I've got no familiarity with a boxer engine. Never really worked on one, seen one, just not really familiar with, I know how they work conceptually, but never really worked on one. So anyway, I'm doing all my research on the GR, and I come across the 2025 GR86 Hakone Edition. And I know that sometimes limited editions are not, they're a marketing ploy, but I will say, once I saw the GR86 Hakone Edition, that green with that interior, having the premium performance packages included, that really got my attention. I thought that car looked amazing, and I sort of thought, okay, if all these people are talking about this GR86 as a great car, and then here's this beautiful limited edition version of it, let me see what that looks like. And called around to dealerships, and it was hard to even track one down. Where it was, finding a dealer who had an allocation that wasn't already spoken for was difficult. Adding on top of that I wanted the manual transmission made it even a smaller subset. For those of you who aren't familiar, the Hakone Edition it's limited to 860 cars in the U.S. And you figure, I don't know what the split is, maybe it's out there, but you figure maybe half are automatic and half are manual. So 430 cars coming this year, and I'm trying to call around, trying to find one that's not spoken for. Ultimately ended up finding one at Toyota of Orange, and I got it, right? I put the deposit down. It was a $1,000 deposit. I thought, all right, I'll put that down. I'll drive it when it gets here. If I don't love it, I can get my deposit back. If not, at least I'm secured in getting this car. Well, fast forward to this past week. Car gets delivered. I'm able to get to the dealership. I drive the car. Wow. It's amazing. And I ended up buying it. So, if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm talking to you from my brand new GR86 Hakone Edition. I love this car. It's absolutely amazing. When I drove it, I was really impressed with the shift feel. I was not expecting the shifter to feel that tight. I think I always had a perception that German cars were kind of the more refined, the shift feel would be vastly superior. I mean, I definitely had that perception. I had driven some manual transmission cars when I was in high school. Friends had, Civics or whatever, and I remember driving them. And I'll add this. I almost got an RSX Type S because, again, going back to when I was in high school, I really wanted an Integra Type R. Well, they had discontinued it by the time that I was, driving. And the Integra had turned into the RSX, or that was at least how it was sort of marketed. And so I sort of thought the RSX Type S would be sort of the heir apparent to the Integra Type R. And I remember driving the RSX and feeling very underwhelmed. It felt very underpowered. It didn't sound, it sounded very four-cylindery. I just didn't enjoy the car. Not if you have one and you love it, I'm happy for you. For me at that stage, it wasn't what I wanted. And I think I was worried with the GR86 that it would be that, because I think what I knew about the 86 was it was great vehicle dynamics, right? Good weight distribution, enough power, but the power wasn't going to blow you away. And at this point, my daily driver is a Rivian R1S, right? 800 horsepower, 900 foot-pounds of torque. I mean, electric cars, they're different, right? But they're not. No electric car out there is underpowered. And so I sort of thought I'd feel underwhelmed, and I really wasn't, right? Car feels amazing. Again, the power's not going to blow you away, but it doesn't make me feel like there's nothing here. And the shifter, I cannot, this car shifts amazing. It's very pointed, right? It's very clear what gear you're in. It feels very natural, short throws. I really enjoy the driving experience in this car, and instantly just fell in love with it, needed to buy it. So, again, got it, and I've just been enjoying it. And I think one of the things that was important to me was this was a car, when you buy it direct from Toyota, and I don't know if Subaru has the same deal, but you get a free NASA membership for a year. They want you to go out and track this car, right? I think that was important to me. Again, going back to, I wanted something that was turnkey, that was ready to go out on the track, right? It's been years since I've gone back out on the track. I want to do it the right way. So having a car that's just ready to go, and I'll probably need to replace the brake fluid, upgrade it to maybe a .4 if this, I don't know what's in this already, but I'm guessing that's probably something that I'll need to do. But I think probably other than that, it's got Michelin Pro Sport tires. It's ready to roll, right? The seats are really bolstered. It wants you to go out and have fun with this car, and that was important to me. So I'm really enjoying it so far. The car just feels great. It feels really good to be in a new car, right? So I'll know that I'm maintaining it well. I'll know how I'm driving it. I've got 154 miles on it now, and I'm breaking it in the way that I want to break it in. Not going too crazy with it. Not redlining it this early, right? Kind of getting the first 1,000 miles is kind of breaking the engine in and getting it ready for what I'm going to do with it later. But I'm really happy with the car. And I'll just say, I think everything that you've heard, if you haven't driven a GR86, everything that you've heard about it is true. Really fun car to drive, and I don't think that it takes long to realize just how fun it is. I think you can get in one right away, and even before you start it, just playing with the shifter, you'll see it's a driver's oriented car. It's a car that wants you to have fun. The shifting experience is a fun one. The gearing feels great. The car feels light. I have nothing nothing bad to say about the car. I guess the only thing that I'll say, and I think this is something that buyers should just know, but if you're coming from a luxury brand, right, this is not that. This is a car that starts at $30K, right? So you need to know that. You need to know that this is a car that's not so focused on the creature comforts. It's focused on the driving experience, and they've nailed it. They've nailed the driving experience. With that said, I don't think that this car feels cheap either. It just doesn't feel like a luxury car, because it's not. But for what I'm doing, as I've been driving this time, I'm now on Angeles Crest, right? One of the best driving roads in America, one that I feel so blessed to just have basically in my backyard. And I'm right at home on it. I think especially in this car, I would love to have like some drone shots, because I think that this ridge green that this car comes in the backdrop of these mountains is probably beautiful. This car is probably really at home in these mountain roads. And just, I think, for someone like me, I think I watch a lot of car YouTube. A lot of these guys obviously are car journalists. This is what they do. They know cars so well. They have nitpicks about things that don't really bother me. For me, for what I am, I'm a guy who has a full-time job that requires me to work a lot of nights and weekends as well, right? I'm a pretty busy guy at work. And then when I leave work, I've got, a wife and 3 kids. I've got parents that are older. My time is pretty limited. My spare time is pretty limited. So for this car to be one that I get excited when I see it, I've had it for 3 days, and here I am taking it out on the Crest because I want to experience driving it. This is what I needed in the car. Something that gets me excited about driving it, something that makes me want to go and have fun, something that I don't have to tweak before I do. I don't have to take it into a shop, make sure it's ready to enjoy. It's just ready to roll. This was really important to me, and so with that, I just wanted to give that update on why I sold the BMW, how I landed on the GR86. Certainly, I'm happy to address any questions that you guys have. If maybe you're thinking about a GR86, I love the Crest. I'm driving by right now. 3 S2000s and 2 Civics are just driving by. Being a part of a car community is just a lot of fun. Enjoying the beautiful nature that we have around us is just amazing. Enjoying these roads. Gosh. I mentioned I have a Rivian, and here I am also complaining about the direction that cars are going, but electric cars can be fun. They can be, but they're just not the same experience, because the joys of driving are not straight line speed. It's not a spec sheet, right? It's not breakneck, 3-second 0 to 60s. Those are fun. Those are fun. But it's the sound of being with your car, right? It's the sound of feeling like the car is an extension of you, knowing how to interact with it. I think for people who maybe drift and track their cars as well, I think there's an element of knowing that you can control a car differently than other people can. I think that there's some fun in that. There's some enjoyment in that. Pushing the limits, finding what your limits are, and as you modify the car, maybe those limits change. And so learning what the new limits are. I think that's all part of the joys of driving as well. Feeling like you can go in and change things up on your car and not have to reprogram it afterwards or whatever. I think these are all things that are a part of the driving experience, the car ownership experience, the car enthusiasts, right, experience. And that's becoming just increasingly hard. So whatever car you've got, enjoy it. I think, don't get caught up. If you're thinking about getting a project car or a weekend car or a track car, I would say don't get caught up in badges. Don't get caught up in what you think is maybe what other people think is a cool car. Go out and drive it. Go out and experience your cars. Some classic 911s just drove by. Gosh, I love it out here. Get out and enjoy the car. Maybe one will surprise you. For me, I've always had the German cars as my fun cars, and the Japanese cars were I just need something to get me from A to Z. When I talk about how my cars were they became transactional, that was when I had, the old Lexus LS. That was when I, got the GX. Well, the GX is a little bit different, but, but for the most part, I'd always had a preference for German cars. I was really surprised to like the GR86 as much as I do. So that's where, I think, and maybe things have changed, right? Maybe in the 90s and early 2000s, maybe there was a big difference between German cars and Japanese cars in terms of driving dynamics. But now, I don't know. This is a pretty amazing driving experience. I'm sure Cayman owners or Porsche owners out there are probably, they clearly have a different opinion. And that's not to say that, nothing that I'm saying is saying that the GR86 is a better car than the Cayman S, all right? It really, for me, came down to, if I track this car and something breaks, I can afford to fix it, right? It's not the end of the world for me. Whereas, one of the things that you got to consider is, if you buy an expensive car, even if you're buying it used, the repairs are still expensive, right? It's still, the Cayman S, you might be able to get one used for $30,000, but the repairs are still based on a $60,000 car or plus. So, I think just knowing also my family and my financial goals and what I want my car enthusiasm to be in that, what I want this hobby to be within that, I think the GR86 has made a lot more sense for what I wanted. So with that, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for listening to my life update. Hope you enjoy the video, and I'll see you on the next one.